Hey everyone, Cranberry Alarm here with our 2025 REEFSCAPE Day 1 recap. My name's Reese. I'm an alumni of Team 1741 and a current mentor for Team 108 Sigma Cats.
My name's Grant. I'm an alumni of Team 1741.
My name is Kevin. I am an alumni of Team 1741 and a mentor for Team 1741.
No surprise. I'm Jordan. I'm an alumni of 1741 and the current drive coach and mentor for 1741 as well.
And my name is Corey, and I'm the same, alumni and mentor for 1741. And we're going to pass it back over to Reese to talk a little bit about our REEFSCAPE strategy and what we value in this game as far as what we're targeting for Ri3D.
This video on fun is brought to you by viewers like you and also in partnership with the following. AndyMark is your one-stop shop for all your robotics competition needs. Celebrating 20 years of quality robotics parts and superior service, AndyMark employees have over 200 years of first-team experience. From mechanical and electrical products to tools and hardware, head on over to andymark.com for high-quality and affordable solutions. Build your alliance with so many other FIRST alumni who go to Kettering University. Every student at Kettering experiences their cutting-edge co-op programs that seamlessly blend the professional and academic worlds. Kettering co-ops are a fully immersive working experience at the leading edge of industry. Head on over to kettering.edu/first to learn more about their incredible programs and to get more information.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. This game is definitely has a lot of ins and outs to it. A lot of different ways you can play this game. A lot of different point breakdowns and whatnot, and a new introduction this year is that we now have 6 RP total in a match, 3 RP from a win, and 3 bonus RP. So that kind of shakes things up a bit in terms of prioritizing what you want to. For us, we kind of, after breaking down everything, we kind of decided that Coral is going to be our main focus, and that we knew that we wanted to be able to score L2, L3 for sure. And after kind of evaluating a little bit of designs, kind of evaluating the difficulty of hitting L4, we kind of knew that that would be a really big opportunity for us. And so after looking forward to that, we also evaluated the game a little bit more and understood the importance of algae in this game. Not only is algae on the floor that can be scored in the processor or shot into the net, it is also on the reef, prohibiting you from scoring more game pieces on the L2 and L3 levels. And a little bit on that, we are unsure on the ruling of whether the L4 rung is affected by this also. I think there will be some Q&As coming out about that to clarify that ruling a little bit. But as of right now, I think our interpretation of it is that the L4 rule is, the L4 level is omitted from being blocked by the algae from being scored. So moving forward with that, we kind of know that algae is going to be a really big play because not only can you remove it to open up more scoring opportunities, you can also remove it and then go ahead and score it in the processor. And when you score it in the processor, it's then handed off to the opponent human player for them to then shoot into the net. And after all that exchange, in total, you'll be coming away with 2 points, and that's if they make it into the net. So algae is also a huge part of our strategy. The main thing that we want to be focusing on, though, our first priority in tackling is going to be coral, and once we tackle that, we'll then be moving on to tackling algae. And then after that, if we have time, we would love to be going on to tackle climbing, as that's also really huge for getting the barge RP, as you need 14 points from that, and if you climb on the deep, you get 12 points, and if you climb on the shallow, you get 6 points. So it's different combinations of that, but the deep is very, very strong, as it gives you 12 points, and all you need is someone to park for that. So all in all, though, with our design concept and what we've kind of seen in the difficulty to get to that, we would ultimately, if we have time, we would like to pursue the shallow cage and hopefully get it there. So that kind of covers most of our strategy. You guys have any further notes on that?
I don't think so, not right now.
Awesome.
So I can take it over. One of the things we wanted to show and kind of outline for you guys in this recap is how the algae interacts with the field, different compliant wheels and normal wheels, what it looks like to drive the robot around and push algae around, and whether you can push algae into the processor from the ground with just bumpers. We have already an AM1 for You chassis that we had built previously, now 3 years ago, our first Ri3D in this building, but it's just an AM142 chassis, 10.54 to 1s. We have 4 Neos and completely stock. I believe it's 28 inches by 26 inches, so it's a bit of a reduced frame perimeter, but we think that this size, the 28 by 26, will still be able to fit everything that we want to do in it for this year. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and have Jordan drive around a little bit and show how the Algae interacts with bumpers on the field. And then the Algae and Coral are set up like this like stand format at the start of the match. And so this is what it would look like if you were to run into that that stack from like a low bumper perspective, nothing else on top. Maybe we're having some Robocom issues.
As we always do.
As we always do.
And currently these bumpers are set at the 1-inch height, and this is just what we had defaulted from last year. Ultimately, with this game, it's a pretty flat field, so you could ultimately set your bumpers pretty low to the ground. And that's probably something that we'll be reevaluating at another point, but right now our priorities are elsewhere. And it looks like we're ready to go.
We can enable and show a little bit. So go ahead and hit the coral algae stack. We can definitely go faster if
He's
you
so
want.
fun.
I guess the nice thing about these game pieces is you don't have to worry about popping them or breaking them like previous years, not in the same way. PVC pipe is not failing on you. And oh, that's interesting. You can bump the algae off and keep the coral upright. We are using bumpers 1 inch off the ground. Do you want to go ahead and try and like corral an algae over to the processor and just show that only bumpers, how difficult that maybe is? So we were able to previously bounce an algae up and in, but it's not really something that you should count on in a real match. And one last thing, Jordan, I'm just gonna have you run and try and push the algae up and in slowly. And you can see that it's not really able to push the algae up and in. But that's a little bit about the robot interacting with the algae. The next thing that we tried was a number of different wheel types, and I'm gonna get some people to help me with this maybe while I narrate. But a common setup I think we'll see this year is interactions between the bumper, the algae, and a single roller, or the algae and the processor edge. So let's actually just show like a single roller and the bumper and pulling it up into the robot. The algae is super grippy in texture, and so really any wheel we found with a high durometer, the greens and oranges on AndyMark, and then also like a lot of the black wheels that ThriftyBot has, 45 to 60 durometer, have no problem gripping onto the algae. We have on these axles some compliant wheels, the 3-inch compliant wheels from AndyMark, I believe, and we don't really think that the compliance actually helps out in any way. It's what we had laying around. You could likely use stealth wheels as well. Whenever you're compressing the wheels into the ball compresses faster than even the lowest durometer. I think I might have said highest durometer earlier. Lowest durometer wheels. One prototype that we had to sort of captivate the algae and hold on to it, it's using these Thrifty Bot solid urethane wheels, and we just have them spaced out. I think it's 10 inches in between, but without even like going fully around the algae and sort of collecting it in a normal way, we're only pulling this algae into our robot 6 inches or so, and we're able to captivate it. And we think that driving around and normal vibrations of competition, we're going to be able to hold on to that algae without it falling out. Now, a robot hitting it directly, all bets are off. But this is maybe a good way of getting around the fact that the algae is a huge game piece, and internalizing it this year, especially for robots going for smaller frame perimeter, is going to be difficult. Superstructure-wise, I know most people are thinking about elevators. Being able to pass the algae through an elevator is going to be rough. I think that's all that we really had to cover with algae.
Let's do it.
Sure.
Question from Vani. If the algae is already on the robot and it drives into the processor, will it go in?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so if we have the algae in the robot, so it's up a good like 6 inches, this is going to break our field probably. Let's see if this. Yes. I think the hesitant answer is yes. It's difficult to manage, I guess, because the ball bounces up and hits the top lip of the processor. So. And we did find that in testing too. If you have a mechanism which is sort of popping the ball up, I guess we can show that. I don't know if we still have the drill set up with the compliance stars. We might not. One of the videos that we've made features some of the AndyMark compliance stars on a drill, and we sort of bring the compliance stars in low on the algae to pop the ball up. And we noticed while we were doing that if you pop the ball up too much and it hits this front, the top, it often bounces out, isn't very consistent. Do we have more questions? So for us, a huge one is the reduction in the amount of coral that you have to score if you're able to manipulate the algae and score it in the processor for cooperation.
Yeah, and along with that, when you score in the high rung L4, it's if I remember correctly, it's worth 5 points during teleop. Well, if you score an algae in the processor, it's worth 6 points. So it's actually more than an L4, and that's assuming that the human player that is getting the algae is not going to properly score it. And I imagine that when near the start of a match where there's no algae in the net, the human player is going to have a pretty high success rate. But as you start to get, 5 to 6 to 7 algae already in the net, I have a high suspicion that the human player will begin to miss as the algae bounces in and bounces out, and then that way you capture on that 6 points and then can even pick up that algae once again and put it right back into the processor. So they're a really, really good scoring opportunity, and they also open up the field for more scoring opportunities.
For an intake-outtake system, and what will it be able to accomplish?
Yeah, so I guess that actually is a perfect segment into our next area. Let's go ahead and take a look over at our coral intake. I would say intake, but it's really more just a passive ramp. So one of the things that we noticed is that picking up from the ground is going to be significantly challenging compared to last year. With the varying orientation that the game piece may come in, this is a fairly different game piece, and then also reorient it into the way that you want. We thought that because the human player can introduce it in such a standardized way, it would be best to just grab it from the human player station, along with the surplus of game pieces that exist behind the human player station, and how close it is. We feel that it would be best to just grab from the human player station, as that may help us get the most competitive robot for the least amount of effort. So we made this little ramp right here, which we're using currently a polycarbonate sheet as the base right here. And then we're using polycarbonate shields right here to go and vector it so that it can be centered. What this would ideally be is this would be a static portion of the robot. And then this would be handed off into a portion of the robot that would be our end effector. Right now our current leading idea is this ramp right here, and then we put wheels on top of it. Similar, very, very similar to the kitbot. The goal would be to keep it very simple and let the vectoring of the ramp do a lot of the work and centering it and getting it to the position we want. And then from there, we just got to raise our elevator and whatnot to get to the position that we want. So I'll hand it off to Grant, and he can kind of demonstrate the different methods of operation into the ramp. So as you can see, he's just letting that one go, and he's putting that in the vertical orientation. Let's do a few more. And this ramp right here is currently set at 10 degrees, and the top point right here is set at 31. It's actually set a little bit higher, but we went ahead and raised up the human player station a little bit to give us the representation of that being lower. And we really like this 31 degrees, and this is kind of with the robot simulated all the way up against the human player station. But if we assume for a second that maybe you weren't perfectly aligned, you're getting defense played on you, how that kind of looks. And you can see it catches it no problem, sort of vectors it. Let's see if we kind of move it around, see what that looks like, and stuff like that, and then still manage to go in. And a lot of these you'll probably have a lot of bounces, so it's going to be very important to be all the way up against the human player station. And there we still hit. Let's see if we can get a few more that get it off balance. Let's just square it up like that. Call it a day. There you go. You can kind of see it reoriented. And let's go and do one with the horizontal orientation. See what that looks like. So there it successfully did it. One thing we noticed with this, when it's horizontal, if it hits one of the sides first, it does a pretty good job of reorienting it. There's another good one. Let's go ahead and recenter. And sometimes it does get stuck like that. And that's just due to the slope here. But if you have a good slope, if you make it steeper, you may avoid some of that. But for us, we found the 10 degree is really good, especially when you're doing the vertical. It seems to vector it really nicely and then also give it enough oomph to get it through. So we're actually having more success now than we were earlier, but it's actually working quite well for us. There, we're getting it through. So yeah, we also tried doing it with a wood base, in which seemed pretty comparable results, but ultimately we thought the polycarb was accessible to teams. It was solid. We really liked it, and so we're going to be moving forward with this kind of our design as our intake solution to intaking the coral.
If we
All right. What previous year common designs are you drawing on most in your design?
Say it one more time. I'm sorry.
What previous year designs are you drawing on most in your designs?
Yeah. So this year is a very similar year to 2019. In the sense that it's pick and place, dual game piece. So I think a lot of robots we're taking kind of inspiration from. A lot of robots from 2017 with their gear intakes have a very similar intake to this for getting gears from the human player station to driving through. Yeah, Corey, you got one?
I think we're also taking some inspiration, at least climber ideas from the soccer game. Was that
2009.
2009?
2010. Right, Jordan? You're part of that.
So it's kind of a similar climbing style. You're grabbing onto a steel tube. It is shaking around this year, which is quite different from 2019.
Yeah, so we were also very fortunate to have the mentors here go and help us set up a climbing station here, or a barge. And so here we have the cage set up in the deep position. And we have this old climber right here that was used on our 2010 robot called Scorpion because of this. And this kind of just like latches onto it and helps grab it. But you can kind of see it would latch on like that. And then from there, when you would start rotating up, the friction would basically lock it in place, camber it, and then that would basically allow you to pivot up. The biggest struggle with this is going to be, one, how much it moves, and you never know with your teammates coming through if they're going to hit it, whatever else is going to happen. And when this thing starts moving, it's going to stay moving. So I think a lot of teams are going to have a lot of struggle with getting to this. So I think if you're going for this game element, it's going to be important to have a wide range of driver error so you can pick up on it. Do you have any more questions on this?
There's another question about the climber. Have y'all considered pushing off of the bottom of the cage?
We need to. That was one question that I also had, but we ultimately turned our priorities away from it because we figured our focuses would be best spent towards coral and algae. But that was one rule that we need to look into to verify that you can climb from that point. I know for a fact though that you cannot climb from this top surface. You can climb from the bottom surface, as confirmed here by Jordan. Blame him if he's wrong.
Check the rules.
Check the rules. We are also not perfect.
What?
Hey, chat, before we get any more questions for the Ri3D team, which put as many as can in. If we don't get to them, we'll try to get to them after the show as well, too, in chat. So stick around for that. We are going to start a giveaway from our friends at the Thrifty Bot. We're giving away a $25 Thrifty Bot gift card. So if you're interested in winning that, type in very thrifty, 2 words right now in the chat. That's your keyword to win. If you are a YouTube subscriber, go ahead and click that subscribe button. You do get 3 times chance to win. It's absolutely free to do so. And if you don't mind throwing a few bucks funds away, you also can get some ad-free content as well, too, as a YouTube member. So once again, type in very thrifty in chat right now. That's your opportunity to win. Thanks again to the Thrifty Bot, and we'll draw for that in just a few minutes.
Awesome.
Yes, we do have some more questions about the coral. First one, how do you plan on getting the game piece from the human player station to transition to an elevator or other mechanism, or what other mechanism do you have in mind for getting the coral to L3 and L4?
Yeah, so kind of in this configuration, this was a really thrown together prototype right here. And ultimately right here, this would be the transition from ramp over into end effector. And like I mentioned earlier, there'd be some sort of end effector, which we still need to prototype and verify. But from there, it'd be a simple one actuation design. You can do a gate that lets it go. Right now, our current leading design is just putting an intake wheel on it and just spitting it out at the desired position. And that would be driven up and down by an elevator.
One thing to note, we're not driving the full ramp up and down.
No, don't do that.
All right, do you see some of the cone mechanisms from 2023 being useful for picking up coral?
Ooh. You say the pickup mechanisms?
Yeah, like the cone mechanisms from 23.
Definitely. I think there's a lot of inspiration to be taken from 2023 in this game, as it's also a pick and place with dual game piece. I know a lot of teams focus picking up from the ground. I know 4481 had a lot of really good resources on picking up cones from the ground. Just picking up a game piece in multiple orientations. 1690 also had one. I think the big challenge with this game is going to be able to pick up the game piece in any orientation and then be able to orient it in any orientation that you want it. And that's ultimately, those challenges is ultimately what led us to go to the human player station, where we can have the human player decide what we want the orientation to be.
Is it a viable option to put both algae and coral mechanisms on the same thing?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the teams that can pull that off are going to be really successful. Yeah, you guys have any more input?
I mean, the first thing that we talked about whenever we saw this game was, what about a 2023 mechanism which was dummy easy. We missed it whenever we did that Ri3D. But are there any mechanisms like that to be able to control the coral and algae? I don't know. It's I think a lot harder to pick coral up off the ground than the cones. And then to be able to transfer that mechanism in some way to also pick up from the feeder station. It's not the same orientation. It's traveling with speed. It might be more difficult to sort of package something
100%.
compared to 2023. But yeah, a team that does it efficiently, uses very little space, saves weight, they're gonna thrive.
Yeah, certainly a big challenge.
If you were to do only coral or only algae, which would you do?
Ooh. This is a tough question. Ultimately, we kind of decided that we would go in the direction of only coral, as algae has no direct correlation to any of the RP. When you go in auto, you have to leave the auto zone and then also score on the reef. And then also the coral RP, you have to put 5 on each row. But if you do get the co-op, which is correlated to the algae, it reduces that. So that is one area where the algae is correlated, but ultimately you have enough scoring locations to get the most out of coral. Awesome.
All right, one question is, how have you guys took into account the height restrictions? It's in quotations. They might mean from the high barge.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
the robot height maximum this year is 42 inches, which I believe is the same as last year, if I remember right. Fitting a 2-stage elevator in there, which reaches L4, if you position your coral in the right way, isn't too big of a stretch. I forget what the actual question was.
Yeah, I think just packaging. I think the big challenge this year is definitely going to be all the packaging for everything you want to need. You want to pick up from the ground, algae off the ground. You want to pick cones off the ground. You want to be able to go to L4. You want to be able to de-algify the reef. All packaging that all into one robot, especially with the added weight reduction this year, going from 125 pounds to 115 pounds. Packaging is definitely the biggest challenge that teams are going to face this year. And I guess that goes correlated to the height restriction. And our solution to that is push it as far as we can without breaking the rules.
Yeah, we plan on making a max height robot.
Yep.
All right, last question for now. How difficult is it to get past defense at the human player station?
Ooh. You know, it's going to be a challenge, especially for a tank-driven robot. A lot of tank robots are going to have a big challenge with that. But it's very similar to 2019, where the rockets were completely unprotected. And I know a lot of teams got completely locked out of that. And I think that'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out. I mean, the human feeder station is about 2 robots wide, if I remember correctly, maybe a little bit wider. So it'll be interesting getting around that. I'm going to say Swerve will probably have the best time getting around that.
Yeah, so there's also 2 feeder stations, which is an interesting note. So since you can only have one robot playing defense, even if they shut down one of your offense spots entirely because, they're a Swerve defense spot, that leaves the other feeder station completely open for maybe your other 2 partners. So that's something you need to think about too, while driving where your driver station is relative to where you want to score might be a factor. You also have to think about splitting up sides so that defense is not as effective on you, should that happen.
We should clarify, we're making a max height for starting configuration.
Yes, max height for starting configuration, 42 inches.
There's no max height robot in match, from what we can see. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. He's just talking about the fact that you can extend supposedly infinitely vertically once the match has started.
There were people questioning about that right after you said
Oh,
that
okay.
we're making max height robot. So clarification.
Thank you.
So R3D team, anything else that you guys want to cover in terms of anything from progress or maybe future plans, anything like that?
I think one thing that we wanted to show that we haven't showed is actually scoring the coral onto the reef tree thing with a passive sort of sliding mechanism.
What's that over here? Very huge, big, thankful. Thank you to Andy Mark for supplying us with this reef right here that's been helping us to prototype and all that. yeah, thank you to Anymar for that.
One thing that we definitely didn't expect and have struggled with is scoring an L1. We thought it would be an absolute piece of cake to have a mechanism with the height of L2 just drop the game piece and just go straight on right now, Jordan, to show this is how most people would be approaching it. It's going to work like 8 times in a row now. But we literally sat here for probably 20 minutes just dropping the coral, having a terrible time trying to get it to land. And there might be like some perfect height that you can hold your passive mechanism or active mechanism to get it so that the coral don't roll out. This is something that we just clearly didn't have time to experiment with every orientation and height and variation, but it's not a gimme, I don't think. And you might need a separate mechanism to reliably, consistently score in L1 if you're trying to sort of eject the coral at an angle down at L2, 3, and 4. So Jordan just showed that. We would, in our robot, essentially be lifting this mechanism up and down. We're planning on having a wheeled intake to fully control this in and out of our robot so we could put force on it. But we have found that a passive one, even from further away, is able to score on all of the proper like rung tiers, L2, L3, and L4. It's going to be some experimentation for your exact robot, where you're dropping the coral from. But if you're able to reach up high enough for L4 and sort of get over this point where the coral angles onto the post, you don't need a different mechanism purely because the top, the L4, is vertical. Or at least we don't think so. I'm sure we'll have some questions about that.
Yeah, so while we do that, we're going to draw for the giveaway. We'll take maybe just a couple more questions. We know we'll let you all get back to work, and then we'll off-air try to answer as many questions as possible as well, too. So once again, the giveaway was for a $25 Thrifty Bot gift card. Very thrifty was your keyword. Type in the chat. YouTube subs get some extra luck as well, too. If you do win, by the way, please go to funroboxnetwork.com, click the button in terms of winning a giveaway. Fill out your info. This is just a gift card, so we only need an email address for that. And the winner is going to be Mathis. Congratulations, Mathis. That's Mathis. You have won the $25 ThriftyBot gift card. Thanks again to ThriftyBot for the awesome giveaway. In future days, we will have both ThriftyBot and AndyMark giveaways to have as well, too. So make sure you tune in 9 p.m. Eastern, both on Sunday and Monday, and then at noon Eastern on Tuesday, if you're able to, for the real show. But we will have all this stuff re-uploaded back up at youtube.com/@FunRoboticsNetwork or FunRoboticsNetwork on YouTube. So make sure you check out all the videos we're uploading there, as well as many of the videos that explain more in depth of what you just saw here today.
Is there any way to simultaneously score a coral and take out an algae?
Yes.
So you are allowed to manipulate both a coral and an algae at the same time. I have a feeling that it would be difficult to package your robot in such a way that your mechanism to control the coral is not also in the way to grab the algae out. If we grab an algae and sort of just set it.
And another thing to note is that we are also one half of a reef right here. The other half will kind of help us kind of explore the interaction of the algae with the reef and kind of how that will all work out. So hopefully that'll be more to come another day.
Yeah, so you don't leave yourself much like packaging around the coral to have an active mechanism to place the coral on and be able to get the algae out. I'm sure there's a way.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a possibility maybe you go up to L4, and as you're going up to L4, you grab the algae out, something like that. I know a lot of people had a really neat design where in 2019 where they had one elevator that also scored the hatch and the cargo. So there's probably some really good solutions out there for that.
Oh, I see. They were potentially talking about removing this algae and scoring on L4.
Something like that. I
Yeah.
think there's probably a number of possibilities you can do for that. Yeah, let's
Okay.
do it.
All right. What mechanism would you recommend in order to reorientate game pieces to fit them into the reef?
Can't say I recommend a mechanism, but I would say I'd recommend looking at 1690 from 2023. They had a really neat manipulator for that.
What do y'all think about pushing the algae out rather than picking it up and pulling it out, or like flinging it out with a hook?
I think it's going to be pretty difficult. Even though the renders show there's a little bit of space between the algae and the top bars, the practicality of it is it's touching the back and the bottom. So I think it's not wedged in there, but it looks pretty tight. So that's something we're hoping to get, like Corey was mentioning. We're going to make in the second one and kind of see how the geometry works, hopefully more tomorrow. And we'll certainly keep you all posted on that. Sounds like we have one more question. Maybe?
All right, so any questions we don't get to since we're running out of time, we will try to get them in chat afterwards as well, too. Big thank you to the Robot in 3 days Cranberry Alarm team. Have been awesome so far. Make sure you do check out those explainer videos. Before we wrap up with you guys, kind of for tonight, what are the next big steps you guys want to get done?
Yeah, right now, for my big thing is we kind of all had a really good discussion and kind of move forward with our overall design architecture. So for me, I'm going to be working on finishing up a lot of the CAD. And then from there, we're also planning to hopefully finish up the elevator tonight once we finish up the CAD and kind of get all that verified, get that looking good. And then from there, get some CNC going, and then maybe we can do some testing validation.
It would be a miracle if we had an elevator mounted by the end of the night to and also manipulate the coral.
Yeah.
So
If you want to stay up to date with everything that they're doing, make sure you check out their Chief Delphi thread. You can go on Fun's Discord or Fun's social media channels under Fun FRC as well, too, which will have all that stuff, including like their GitHub. And if you want to see some of their on-shape CAD progress as well, too, you can check it out right on there. But if you're in chat, by the way, right now, give a bunch of applause, emotes, spam whatever you want to thank the Ri3D team for taking the time out for that. We don't know what time we're ending, so whenever we end is when we end. So, but we will start back up at 9 a.m. Eastern each day, so make sure you check out that. And just a reminder for tomorrow, we will have a day 2 or Saturday recap or Sunday recap show at 9 p.m. Eastern as well too. So guys, any last things before we head out?
This will be a really fun game, very challenging.
yeah, we're super excited to see how far we can get, and super excited to see what crack designs teams come up with.
All right, best of luck, teams, and make sure if you've got any more stuff you want for the teams, type that in chat. We'll try to get to it as soon as we can. We'll team get back to work. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
This video on Fun is brought to you by viewers like you and also in partnership with the following. Build your alliance with so many other FIRST alumni who go to Kettering University. Every student at Kettering experiences their cutting-edge co-op programs that seamlessly blend the professional and academic worlds. Kettering co-ops are a fully immersive working experience at the leading edge of industry. Head on over to kettering.edu/first to learn more about their incredible programs and to get more information. AndyMark is your one-stop shop for all your robotics competition needs. Celebrating 20 years of quality robotics parts and superior service, AndyMark employees have over 200 years of first-team experience. From mechanical and electrical products to tools and hardware, head on over to andymark.com for high-quality and affordable solutions.